So in recent history, oftentimes a lot of people usually complain when it comes to the female characters and how they are and things of that nature and sort. Well, today I want to do something a bit different. Today I want to basically go over the characters that I made of the female variety that is a part of my story. Now I know that there is a lot of people that is possibly new to this channel that don't know anything about that story or what it is and stuff like that, but I thought maybe because since we have those new people and maybe people are tired of how female characters are written, why don't I give you a brief summary of each character and, of really every original character I've ever made in Koikatsu and kind of go over it in a way where hopefully it'll give you some intrigue into wanting to watch that series and kind of just learn more as things kind of go on. Now I will go ahead and say to you that the series is definitely not for everybody because it will go down different routes and different themes and use different character types that not everybody will be liking to see, but freedom of expression, bitch, and that's the reason why we have that there. So when it comes down to things, you just might need to be expecting some wild shit at times. And lastly, before the video ends today, I want you to watch the full video from start to finish, mainly because we will be doing a special little contest at the end of it. Because when it comes down to things, there will be something in the story of what happens in the future, in the very near future, that I want you to take a vote on when it comes to some of these girls, and we'll go ahead and go through that too. And whoever wins will get not only a boost to their narrative, but also win a certain competition that I'm planning to do in the story. So just again, keep that in mind so when we get to the end, you'll know what to do. All I need you to do is just comment the name of which character you want to see win, and whoever gets the most votes obviously wins. So without any further ado, let's get to it. Now to start off this entire list, we have to talk about the first character I ever decided to make in Koikatsu period, which is Chisa Tsubame. Now you might have seen her once before in an edited video where we did her versus Madaka, and that's kind of the only thing I really ever used her for, considering the fact that I was just kind of experimenting with Koikatsu, seeing what I could do with the program and seeing how far you can customize things, and you can customize basically anything you want to. And it's been a very long time where I've been thinking, you know what, there should be a game like this, and I'm so grateful that there is a game like this where you can do stuff like this in this sort of way. So with Chisa, she was basically the experiment of everything, basically kind of seeing what I could do, what is allowed and stuff like that. And also if you look at her design, you could pretty much tell that she looks very familiar to another character that we will talk about in this video. So really she's the prototype to everything, and when it comes down to things, there's not really much to be said. So we get into the first actual character that actually joins the story, and it's Blue Izona. Now for people that may not know, Blue is actually a character that I did have a real dream of, who was basically a person who was doing like these music little concerts on the streets and essentially wasn't necessarily getting by in her life really good. She was doing it basically for money and stuff, and then at some point in the dream they get popular, and they actually was really good. But Blue was a weirdo in that dream. Like, she didn't shake people's hands, she shook the air's hand instead of shaking your hand for some damn reason. She don't talk to nobody, she's a weirdo. But when it comes down to things, she's a nice weirdo, especially once you get to like really know her and stuff. And she also plays bass guitar, which is a feature I do not really show on Blue too much. So I didn't want to just leave that dream there and not necessarily utilize it in the story, so I decided to create Blue and put her into the damn story. And essentially what ends up happening is that I took the concept of dreams and put that also into the story, where I changed a little bit more of her narrative and stuff like that to basically kind of make it more story-esque, and you can kind of get an idea of what she's been through and things like that. And that's basically what I kind of shifted when I made it in Blue into this story and stuff like that. And I haven't really gone over her backstory too much, honestly, so you best believe we have to do a backstory video at some point in time, but definitely I did want to craft her into the story in some shape or form. And she's also the fan favorite, at least from what I've seen when it comes to you Kohais. Y'all really like the shit out of Blue, to be perfectly honest. And even though while she may not necessarily be, I would say, the more uniquely designed character in the show, she is definitely someone that is having a theme of rebellion with her. Essentially, the reason why she has pierced nipples and she has a spiked choker is essentially because she doesn't like how society has treated her, and much less how things kind of is in her personal life when she was in the dream world of her original dream. And so she basically wants to rebel against everything that holds her down, and that's essentially why she has the stuff that she has and is the way that she is. But that's not everything when it comes down to Blue. Just like everybody else, she has powers, Reject and Release, which are the most broken ass abilities in the entire show, which essentially Reject is more of a negative thing that kind of hits the enemy, and Release is more of something that's positive on Blue's side of things, or what she will allow it to be. There's really no limit to what she can reject or what she can release in things. Maybe she could push the enemy back by saying reject, or maybe she could, heal herself in some shape and form when she says release, maybe relieving herself of some type of pain and things of that sort. And honestly, there is no rules to what she can do. There really isn't any rules. Whatever she thinks of what she can do, it will happen, and that's essentially all she needs. And that's kind of with every single person. But that's the basics of Blue Izona, so now we go over to Shoko Toyokawa, essentially a princess from a different land who is by far a character I didn't have an actual real life dream of, but I decided for the next 3 characters going forward, including her, that I needed to come up with some characters and somehow make it work. And off rip, when it comes down to things, you can tell that she looks like somebody else, and that's right, she looked like Chisa. And funny enough, I didn't recognize this until like a month ago, so I was like, damn, I guess Chisa was like the prototype to Shoko in some shape and form, because they look damn near similar outside of, hair color and some other aspects and things like that. Literally have the same damn pants on, so it's like, come on now, what is this nonsense, right? So when it comes to Shoko's case, she is a person who is, another original character who is essentially a princess from the world that she comes from, and she basically is a very overconfident, have-an-ass person that honestly think that she can protect everybody or be strong as shit and never be folded, even though in the show she constantly gets folded over and over and over again. But that doesn't necessarily mean she ain't really all that strong though. She does have a power of indomitability, which allows her just an enormous amount of strength. She could do whatever the hell she wanted to, but she just have a problem of trying to actually use that power. In the entire show, she only has one time where she used the power, and that's to impose the will of Maki to get rid of the despair that's inside of her, obviously. And when it comes down to things, that's the only time she ever really used the power. But she has to kind of get back into that place of where she was again, and she hasn't really been able to do that. When it comes to her design, I kind of mixed it between another original story I've been working on for a long time, and kind of mixed it with her character, with one of the characters. And essentially, I basically was like, okay, I need a character that is going to be kind of like an enemy, and it's going to be like hot shit a little bit, and basically be confident in their abilities, even though they're not necessarily all that good and all that confident and stuff like that, right? They can throw hands, they can box, but not on the level that you're probably thinking that they can, or at least not in a way that would give them victory every single time, right? So essentially that's what I kind of wanted to do, a character that thinking that they're all that good, but not necessarily, but still at the end of the day has a lot to learn when it comes down to things. There's not really too much I can say when it comes to Shoko, outside of what you have already seen in the story for those people. At first I was going to make her just have a crazy personality and mentally, but I decided against it, and I'm honestly really glad. She is like literally a person that's super caring and wants to be, the shoulder to lean on if something goes wrong. But when it comes down to things, she still has a lot to learn before she even gets to that point, even though she has already proven herself to be that point many times. So when it comes down to things, Shoko has a lot to learn, but it is what it is. A princess gotta know how to be a princess, and just be a strong ass princess at that. But let's bring up someone else in the royal family, which is Yukari Asagami Yoshimi. Long ass name, but it is what it is. But when it comes down to things, Yukari was actually not her blood sister. In fact, she was actually someone in the same world of Shoko who shared the same blood as her, essentially, because she kind of transferred it from one body to another, essentially. Basically, Shoko and Yukari swap blood, and that's why they're sisters. Very nasty, very disgusting, but that's what she kind of did, because Yukari is a mage, and she also has a power of her own, which is corruption. Essentially, basically taking anything that anybody is, or basically taking something that is alive, essentially, and corrupting it to a way where it obeys whatever Yukari wants it to do. Whether it's people bowing down to her, whether it's literally a plant maybe going back into a seed, it will do whatever the hell it needs to do. Again, these characters have very broken ass abilities, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense in the logic, and they can be very overpowered. But there is one key thing that is holding them all down, and we'll kind of go into that as the ending of this video. But when it comes down to things, Yukari in her world, at least in the world that Shoko no kind of came from, essentially is a place where they have to have, you know, smiles all the time. Smiles is basically your economy. It's essentially your social status. It's everything. And if you don't smile, you're basically someone that is looked down on. You're basically someone that is not necessarily all that great. And so there is a slum area where everybody knows the truth that the whole society is fake, but you also have Shoko's area where she's rich and smiles all the time, even though she feels too that something is a bit off in her story, which we did talk about her story as well. Go check that out. But when it comes down to things, Yukari never really had that great life. Like, her mom was killed and used right in front of her. She literally had to fend for herself, and she even caused a war between the slums and the rich people as at top. So yeah, she wasn't effing around with a lot of things. But in between all that crazy stuff, she was actually taken into the royal family. She was actually a very well-known person and respected, because she was also a pop idol star that had major backing, and because she was again part of the royal family, everybody liked her. But just because you change environments doesn't mean that you're exactly happy with what you have, which is why she started a war again with the slum and with the rich people that's up top. It's also the reason why she almost killed Shoka at one point, because she didn't like the royalty and how the family was and how things are in the city. But she chose to leave her alive because she was like the only person that she really kind of respected at the end of the day. So when it comes to Yukari, a lot of shit has happened to her. A lot of things that's very crazy with her design, honestly. Like, the colors of her hair is honestly like the best looking one in the entire show, if I'm being honest with the design of things. Like, she has my favorite, I would say probably my favorite design in the entire cast of original characters. And when it comes down to things, there's also like hints of things that is like on her body too. Like, you know, the big ass symbol that's on her chest. What is that? You know what it is if you read the, or at least you read or watched the story. You know exactly what it is. And then there's also one secret handprint that's also somewhere on her, which is on her ass, because Jay did something stupid to bind her, and to basically bind her to him forever, because he had to help her out with something in the story. So yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff that kind of happens, but essentially that's Yukari. But now we go on to the next person, Aoki Ishirari. As I was making the 3 characters, I essentially wanted 3 types of archetypes when it comes to these characters. A confident character, a lolly character, and a dark-skinned character. And that's essentially what we have in Aoki. Now, I also, once again, mix stories when it comes to, you know, what she looks like and kind of where she's from in a bit. So we can actually kind of introduce some of those elements into this story a little bit, just because that story has a lot to do with some of those elements and things like that. So I wanted people to at least get used to it in a weird way, so once you get to see that other story, you'll understand why I did all this. Aoki, just like Jay is a Foxian, essentially an alien space, basically an alien species of fox people who basically just try to live their lives the best they can while being attacked by a lot of crazy ass races that just want to obliterate them for some dumbass reason. And when it comes down to things, Aoki does not have a really good life, obviously. I mean, look at her body. She has an eye patch and a scar, she has these weird headphone things, and she even has like long fingernails that look like about to claw somebody, like she's Wolverine. So what's the deal with her? So when it comes down to things, Aoki is not necessarily the most, I would say, cleanest character with the record, but then again, who really is? Right? I mean, Shoko literally killed her own parents because they was about to use her in a different way that does not need to be used on any woman. Literally, Yukari had to see her mom getting, you know, used in that way and then getting killed, and no one really liked Yukari as a child, so of course she had some demon time energy. And then with Aoki, she literally was in a war zone for a lot of the life in her world. essentially, you know? So she also had to lose her ears, which is why she had those augmentations on her ears. Like, that's literally her ears. She doesn't have ears. Those ears was ripped off originally. So that's why she has those. The eye patch was also like a thing that she had to kind of deal with at some point in time, right? And when it comes down to things, those long ass fingernails ain't just for show. Like, she has to kill and fight a lot of people when it comes down to things to protect things that matters to her. And when it comes down to things, she has the power of gravity. Now, you already seen what she can do with the power of gravity a little bit, because she can even move souls with the power of gravity, which is wild as shit. So it kind of tells you, damn, how strong is this character? Probably a lot more stronger than you really think, but we'll have to see how that kind of goes in the story. Now, of all the characters I have made, of all the original 5, I think, characters as like really like the main 5, I would say, Aoki is possibly one of the least explored characters that we have done yet. So there's not really much for me to say just yet, even though now I'm starting to hint at her past a little bit more and kind of want to hint more at her as a character. Because the only thing with Aoki that people know is that she is a fangirl of the main character because she saw him in her dream, and that's kind of essentially it. Other than that, nothing else about Aoki is really too much known outside of maybe a few hidden details here and there in certain conversations with certain characters, but that's essentially about it. Basically, I wanted to make a character that was, one, dark skinned because we don't have that, and two, I want to essentially make a character that was a Foxian, so again, kind of bring in the race of characters from one series to another so it could be commonplace, or at least you'd be like, okay, so there's a lot of Foxians that's out there and stuff like that. So that's essentially what I wanted to do. So again, there's not really much I could say about Aoki outside of her design, which I just wanted something to look, you know, like she's been through some nonsense. And essentially that's why I kind of have her hair a little bit white too, so she looks like she's been through an insane time. But at the end of all things, she never lost who she really was, even though she has been on the battlefield and had to fight a lot of the time. So that's like a big thing that I want people to kind of recognize when it comes to Aoki. Now you're also probably wondering, Jay, you said the original 5, but you only mentioned 4 girls so far. Who's the 5th one? Well, that's Miss Saratome, or Kiyoshi Saratome, or Kaiho, if you know that name. But when it comes down to things, we can just call her Miss Saratome. So when it comes down to things, she is a also big ass mystery in the whole damn series, because she doesn't necessarily tell you much about what she is, what she has done, what she's been a part of, outside of the fact that she has been around for a very long time, essentially since the beginning of the universe and things like that. Miss Saratome is actually a person known as a guardian of despair, which essentially is trying to make sure that the universe isn't necessarily falling into despair, or despair doesn't have its way in the universe, which is why her and her friends and group is mainly meant to exist to stop anything like that with the help of things of purity. And when it comes down to things, she did kind of kill off her own original team outside of one damn person. And essentially what comes down to things, she wanted her life for herself. She didn't want to just do things when it comes to, you know, saving people from despair and things like that. Why does she have to be the one to do that? What was the point of, you know, being created if that's all she can do and not live a life of her own? So she basically just killed everybody off outside of one person and essentially just started living her own life, and that's why she's kind of in the world that she's in right now and stuff like that. Again, there's not really much to be known about her just yet, though I will say out of all the designs, she probably has the most blandest one, and I wouldn't be too surprised if people kind of forget her at times, mainly because, you know, her design isn't all that great. I basically wanted a teacher character. That's what really I started out with, and I never really thought about anything too beyond when it comes to design outside of like her story and things like that. So, you know, that's like the big thing. Obviously the other big thing is her titties, because they are massive. So yeah, that was also kind of like a thing. I just said, you know what, let's just give her the most giant breast in the entire show. Why the hell not? Just because. And yeah, there's again a lot of things that has to be done when it comes to Miss Saratome, but again, that'll have to come later in the damn story. And with that, that locks in the original 5 of characters that kind of existed for a very long time just by themselves. Then later on, we got to more new original characters. But before we go into that, let me tell you about some of the scrapped characters that I originally was going to use in the story, but I didn't necessarily have any idea what I was going to use them for. And I decided to use many different designs and stuff like that, but of all the characters I really wanted to include into the story but didn't find a way of how to use it, was funny enough an Anubis character, which their name is, at least at this point, Anubis, right? And essentially, I love the design of this character, I really do. The only problem is, I don't necessarily know what I was going to use him for. Originally, I was planning on giving her a chance to be like Jay's familiar because he had Reese's, devil gene and whatever and stuff like that inside of him, but I never really had the chance to use it or really had a purpose to use it, mainly because there was another character that kind of somewhat already filled that role, that if I include into the future of these shows, there will be no real reason to kind of bring Anubis into things. So that's kind of the unfortunate thing when it comes to this character. Like, I like her design, I would definitely use her a bit more, but again, I have no idea what I would use her for or what would be even the points of said character. So it kind of is what it is. Unfortunately, sometimes you do have to scrap characters, and if you think it would be a good idea, sometimes you got to rethink that idea and think it again to kind of make things work in a way where it's like, okay, well, just can't use them and it is what it is. Fortunately enough though, that was like the only character that I ended up having to scrap. Everybody else is going to be in the future, or more so they're going to be already a part of the show. Like, case in point, Symphony. Symphony was also, a fun fact, a character I had a dream about in the real world, essentially, where she was this wacky and kind of crazy jester, like joking around type of character and stuff like that, who honestly was bonkers in some shape or form. At least you got the feeling of, and while she didn't do anything super duper crazy, you can tell that she was just on like this type of, wanting to have fun with everybody and this type of timing and stuff like that, right? So I decided to take that character and put him into Kakatsu's story, just like Blue, and said this time, this is our crazy girl character. Essentially, she doesn't necessarily give a damn. She is the type of person that just want to smile all the damn time, but you know that there's some secrets behind it. And I tried to do my best to make her look as accurate as I remember her from the dream and stuff like that. So this is the end result of what you end up getting. Now, when it comes to Symphony Bohart, full name, when it comes down to things, she is definitely the weirdest one and definitely have a few secrets of her own that we will actually explore in the upcoming parts of what's going to happen, essentially. And when it comes down to things, she does already show strange tendencies, like getting stabbed by Weiss and then, taking the damage, but she could have just blocked the blade maybe, or did something else to move it out the way, or just move Konako out the way at that point. But no, she took the hit full on and then proceeded to do something crazy with Weiss and essentially F her life up, right? And that's due to her ability of biologics, which it states as, if anything is alive or considered to be alive, she can mess with it. Essentially, let's say it's grass that's outside looking nice, green as hell. She could change grass into a cat, because technically grass is alive, and so cats are alive, so she can kind of mix things too. That's a very big ass leap in logic, but that's literally how she kind of is. The biggest leap in logic. She can even go as far as to buff herself up in different ways and kind of just make herself, stronger or maybe even more durable if she wanted to. And that just is what it is. Hell, because people relate things like stars to being like the souls of people, and technically in that sort of sense you would consider a star to be alive, she can even move stars around if she really wanted to. Technically, she could possibly move the time of day if she really wanted to, because that's just how she kind of is as a character. She's broken as shit. She's like the second most broken character in the entire show, if I'm going to be honest with you. Now, just like Aoki, she also has a backstory that isn't fully explained just yet, but we are getting to it. And when it comes down to things, she is excellently horny all the damn time, or at least she tries to be that way when it comes to the main character and really likes him for some reason. And when it comes down to her kink, she just likes to be rough with things. That's just it. That just is what it is. She likes to be treated like shit, and that just kind of is when it comes to the smashing sessions, when you do see that often at times. And really, the only thing I could say about Symphony is that she is a low-down ass character who would do anything that she wants to or anything that Jay orders her to. And just like normal, there is a reason for it, but again, we'll explain that when the story kind of goes on. And the last new character that really we added to the story not too long ago is Shion. By far the one that stands out the most. Possibly the one that is having an air of mystery about her the most too, if you want to consider that way too. So when it comes down to things, she is a very pale ass looking girl. She is a very much, standout type of character, considering all the other characters look very normal, but she looks very pale. She has this type of theme about her that looks like it's about light and dark, as you can tell from her earrings. And hell, if you even took off her clothes and look at the back of her, you can see that, she has tattoos on her, which one is representative of heaven and the other representative of hell. Essentially, in this world, there is things called despair and purity, and that's its own power mess and a whole another thing that you have to watch the show for. But essentially, when it comes down to things, purity represents the above and despair represents the below, as you can kind of tell. You can also possibly maybe think about the times that Jay turns it into his purification state, where you saw that Magatama that's on his necklace and stuff like that, that also represent those colors too. So you're probably wondering what the hell is the story there, and again, you'll have to watch the show to kind of figure out. This time when it comes to making a character, I wanted to make another lolly character that was essentially just really weird. Someone that you probably wouldn't necessarily understand at all if you just looked at her for 10 seconds. You probably wouldn't get it, but that's kind of the whole point. I wanted her to be the biggest air of mystery and essentially just kind of give her the most out-of-pocket, or at least crazy ass backstory too, which essentially, just for a brief little explanation, she was basically adopted into a village that treated her as a god in some shape or form. And they did a lot of awful things to her, with the elders basically using her for smashing time, which is awful because she was a young girl at that time. And when it comes down to things, she killed her elders who basically did that to her. But over the course of the years that she'd been through all that nonsense and did a lot of things, she ended up having this air about her, or at least having the emotional state to not care about anything. Even though her body will react to things, she does not necessarily care. But that's not the only thing that was used when it comes to her. They literally made her go out on missions to kill other rival villages that didn't necessarily agree with the religion of what they were trying to create. And it all backfired in their faces. By the time, everything kind of went to the end of everything, Shion was actually beaten and used and killed the shit out of when it comes to the rival villages that had enough of that one village that Shion was in. And before she ended up dying, the power of purification kind of came and saved her. And essentially, when it comes down to things, she was locked into a pure paradise type of prison for thousands and thousands of years, essentially. And she's old as shit, so she's been around a long ass time, and in that time she's seen a lot of things that the Guardians of the Sphere has done, a lot of people with the power of purification, and until she finally had Jay to kind of come through into this reality to kind of break her free. So now, with all of that despair being a part of her life and seeing all that how it was for many years, now she wants to know what really is purification, and that's the reason why she's with Jay the way she is now. Now, just like Symphony, there is secrets with her, even though you do this time actually know what her backstory is, because it was very much explained into detail in the actual show. And when it comes down to things, again, I just really wanted to make another lolly character because I didn't want Yukari to feel alone. And also I did want to do it just to kind of give a new character some type of sense of mystery. Essentially kind of make a character where it's just like, alright, well, I want to throw a curveball into the story somehow, and that's what I basically did with Shion, essentially. I don't really know where I want to go with her, but I have some ideas of where I could. Now, when it comes to the last two characters on this list, I know this is a very long video, but when it comes down to things, I wanted to bring these characters into the future of the show. Maybe one might have more relevancy than the other because one already has a role kind of filled with that. But essentially, I just want to give it a try too. So, when it comes down to things, as you heard before with Miss Saratome, she was a part of a group of people who ended up, getting killed by her outside of one person. And that one person is Shitoya, who honestly wants revenge for the bullshit that she pulled and wants to understand, why things are the way they are and things of that sort, and has secrets of her own as well. And basically just trying to get back from Miss Saratome from the nonsense that she pulled for no reason. And essentially, yeah, she looks like a Nintendo Switch, obviously, but you can obviously tell that she has a bit of light on her side, obviously, like a lot of white hair and a lot of different colors that is, kind of like a mix between like her anger, but also like the purity of everything inside of it too. So there's a bit of wild stuff that kind of happens when it comes to Shitoya, at least when it comes to her design. I was just basically like, let me just make a character that looks bonkers. Let me just make her bonkers looking. And that's essentially what I ended up doing at the end of everything. So that was kind of how I just felt when it comes down to things. And, you know, again, not too much to know about her because I haven't introduced her yet, but I did want to show off the character at least. And I just remembered there was a few other characters I've forgotten, and we'll kind of breeze through them quickly. But one of the characters that has also been in the story for a while now and actually had some involvement with the last major arc, which was Saki Kagome, who is also a part of the original story that I mixed in with the JSX4 story. And I'm not necessarily going to be showing everything that she can do because I want the secrets to really be in her own story and stuff like that. But she is very strong, like possibly one of the most strongest female characters in this entire world, essentially. Even with Shoko, with her strengths and how she kind of is and how she could potentially be the strongest person, Saki would blow her out the water. I'm just going to be very honest with you. And that's why I kind of have to hold her back just a little bit when it comes down to things. Because, again, this ain't her original world. So that world is also being made and being written. So I need to just keep her hidden in secret like that. And she'll just come out maybe at rare times, maybe to do some things. Who really knows? She's also a Foxian who is also the main heroine of that show. And essentially when it comes down to things, she is basically the love interest of that main character in that damn show as well. And when it comes down to things, just to give you a brief little rundown of what her story kind of is, she is basically from a very big ninja clan who essentially has her father and mother like as the leaders of it, and she was basically just trying to do her best to please her parents, but apparently it was never really enough, to the point something very bad almost happened to her, but she ended up saving herself. But she ended up running away from that clan altogether, and essentially some other things kind of happened that I really can't explain, but she ended up kind of going into the main character, and they end up meeting and they kind of get involved in some nonsense. And that's when she also discovered that she can control the power of fire and things of that sort. It's very inaccurate how I'm telling it, but that's kind of on purpose. But when it comes down to things, she can control the power of fire, she can also transform. And there's, again, a lot of mysteries that is about her, but I will not reveal that in this series. I will reveal that in the other series, or at least I will reveal that very much later, right? So when it comes down to things, Saki is not necessarily someone to be messed with. To kind of give you an example of what she could do, she could unleash like a supernova attack, kind of like how Cooler does in Dragon Ball Z, and blow up an entire city if she really wanted to. So, you know, she has a bonkers ass power. Like, it's literally not anything to be joking with. Hell, she could take the heat off of you and add it to her own body, and you'll just be left in the damn cold like you're some cold-blooded animal or some shit like that, right? It's just not necessarily, you know, going to be a good time for you. Also, fun fact, Saki is also the first female character I ever created, like, from paper, honestly. So there's obviously an honor of reason why I wanted to bring her into this damn show as well. Then we have Momo, who is just the best damn cat girl in the world, who is also from that same show, and also has her own secrets. Essentially, I hope Momo is the type of character that people really like, essentially, because yes, she's going to be the overly happy character, but she isn't going to be, hopefully, the annoying character that will piss people off and stuff like that. So when it comes down to her, she's basically the person that's going to be loyal to the main character's side in that story, and I haven't really introduced her to the story of JSX4 yet, or maybe at all. But when it comes down to things, you know, she is very adorable. She's the best damn cat girl outside of Konako. And when it comes down to things, you know, she is also a force to be reckoned with too. She does have her own power, but again, I will not share with you what that power is unless I just decide to bring it up for some damn reason. So she is cute, so she is a pretty face, and while she doesn't necessarily want to resort to violence a lot of the damn time, when she's left with no other choice, she absolutely will. Also, she's the cat girl with the biggest titties of any character in that show of where Saki is from, so there you go. And one other character that I also hinted at that is going to be a part of the story very soon, but I didn't necessarily know exactly how long they will be a part of the story because they kind of fill the role of Miss Saritama, and Miss Saritama already is the teacher role, so it kind of would make no sense to kind of add it, but we might do it anyway, which is finally our last character, Osiri. Osiri is the maid of Jay, and when it comes down to things, she isn't just a maid, she is also the greatest assassin in the universe. So when it comes down to things, you can already tell she's on a lot of demon time. She doesn't necessarily share the same amount of emotions as anybody else does, And when it comes down to things, she does get put into some lewd environments at times, but is basically against her will, and she doesn't necessarily like that, and so she beats up Jay sometimes because she's like, no, leave me alone, you dumbass boy. She doesn't necessarily have any powers per se, but she does know how to box and throw hands and use guns if it's at her disposal. Like, she's literally just as powerful as Sage Naruto, if I'm going to be very honest with you, without the powers. Essentially, she can send shockwaves to F your life up. Not even punching and connecting with you, just send shockwaves of the damn punch. Because that's all she really needs to do. She's very fast, she can just get shit done. Again, there's no reason why she can't do any of this, because again, she is the greatest assassin in all of the universe. Like I said, she may not necessarily be as super strong as everybody else is, but she definitely can whoop some ass if need be. Now you're probably wondering, why is a main character being an assassin, and also why she's serving somebody else? Well, that's again part of a story that I really can't tell, but there is again a very much big reason for it. And I think if I'm not mistaken, I think Osiri might be the second made character that I ever, created when it comes to that original story too. So I think that was also like a thing, because I might be getting it confused with another character. And to be honest, I haven't really seen any of all the characters when it comes to, that story too. Like, there is the whole group of heroine that you haven't even meet yet. So, there's some things there. But when it comes down to things, that's like the main original cast of characters when it comes down to everything. Now, there is one thing I wanted to point out when it comes to the JSX4 girls with the powers and stuff like that. And you're probably wondering, okay, they have all these OP abilities and things like that. Why can't they just spam them out or use them in the way you want them to, or they can do whatever the hell they want to? Very simple. They don't believe in themselves. The reason why you have to use your powers in the way you have to use them is essentially very easy. You can use them however you want to, but you have to believe that you can do it. You have to have that confidence in yourself to do it. And honestly, you just have to have a strong ass will. If you can't necessarily have any of those things, which those girls oftentimes are not strong-willed people, or at least they don't necessarily have a lot of confidence in themselves, they can't do it a lot of the damn time. And you just can't fake it. You have to be true that you can do it. So when it comes down to things, it's kind of like Zatanna from DC, if you know her. Essentially, as long as she can imagine it and believe that she can do it, she can do stuff. And that's essentially what we kind of have here. Everybody has been through some nonsense in their life when it comes to the original world, and everybody has a little bit of low self-confidence and esteem when it comes down to them. So of course they can't necessarily spam their power as much as they want to, even if they tried. So that's why over the course of the story, they have to grow and develop as characters. They literally cannot activate their power if they do not discover what they need for themselves. Which is why I think, honestly, JSX4, I hope, would reach a lot of people in a way, because it's trying to tell a story that, yes, women can be weak, but at the same time, they can be very strong once they go through the things they need to go through and develop as they need to and stuff like that. It's not 100% about them, but they are a major part of the story, and, that is a major thing that has to happen when it comes to these characters. So many times we often see, characters nowadays when the female variety, they're just strong automatically, stoic, know exactly what they want to do. They are good and they can beat any enemy and stuff like that because, oh, they're already enough as it is. But no, these girls, they're not enough. They're basically, they're fine with who they are, but that's not the key points of what's going to save them. At the end of the day, they have to change and develop and grow as people to kind of, do what they want and protect what they want. And things like that. But outside of that, that's essentially all the characters I've made so far or put into the story and just all that type of stuff. Now, before we leave, as I said before, there is one last thing I have to mention, and that is the contest. In the story of where we at currently, there will be a bikini contest, and each girl is going to be in that damn contest, at least that's already been put in the story. And essentially what happens is, I want you guys to basically vote on who's going to win said contest, because not only are they going to be the winners, they're also going to get a boost in their storytelling and things of that sort. So when it comes down to things, We have 15 contestants of characters that I made and also characters that already exist that people already know about. And when it comes down to things, again, I want you just basically to just write down the character name of who you want to see win, and essentially we'll go from there and see how that kind of goes. So the list of characters that is going to be a part of the story as a whole is going to be Blue, Shoko, Symphony, Aoki, Yukari, Saratome, Shion, Konako, Sage, Toga, Tatsumaki, Saki, Sarada, Tanya, and Lamine. And essentially when it comes down to things, again, as I said before, I want you to vote on who has the best bikini and who is sexy as hell and who you want to see win. To be honest with you, we already have 2 votes and 2 people voted Blue. So Blue is already winning. So if you don't want her to win or you want to see somebody else to win, I want you to go through and go ahead and just, vote the character who you think is going to win. The person with the most name in the comments is going to be the winner and is going to be the person that ends up getting the boost in the story. So that is what it is when it comes down to things. So hopefully at the end of everything, damn, this video is long. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you at least understand where I'm coming from when it comes to these characters and what they are and what they do, and really have a bit of more intrigue about these characters and, intrigue about the story. Because again, I'm putting everything I have into this story, and even though I'm a one-man band, essentially voicing all the characters, editing all the stuff, and animating every single movement of the character, I hope that you at least, are intrigued to kind of figure out what you want to see when it comes to it, or at least be intrigued into the character enough to want to watch the story, see where it is, and all that type of stuff. And hopefully that would be like something that you'll come back to the channel for or subscribe for, if that is also the case. Again, the story goes in many different directions, many different wild shit happens, but I'm just doing my best as a person that's trying to write a story and trying to test their abilities of writing, and hopefully it's working to a point where people are interested, because it seems like people are. So hopefully it will continue to grow and things like that, and people recognize that my girls are good. So when it comes down to things, that's essentially all I have for you for this one. If you made it this far, thank you so very much, and hopefully you will enjoy the rest of the channel of what we have and what we offer here. If you did enjoy, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell like you're sharing everywhere else. Also follow me on the socials, and if you'd like to donate to the channel, Patreon is available as well. And until then, it's your boy Jay, signing off. Have a blessed day.